Hey, what's going on? Happy Friday, September 6th. Another edition of Stoppage Time coming to you from my headquarters of the Storytellers Company and our studio where I get to sit and have conversations with the best and brightest entrepreneurial thinkers across every sector and segment of society and industry as we come together conversationally to try and figure out how to leave the world just a little bit better than we found it. That's my mission in life, and that's the work that we do at the Storytellers Company. But today, I'm wandering around my empty apartment because it's way too hot outside for me to be having this conversation with you outside. It's about 101 degrees Fahrenheit, 37, 38, 39, something like that, Celsius for everybody that lives outside the US. And that's just unacceptable. But you know what? It is like that out there because we've broken the climate. And as I discussed on an episode of Entrepreneurial Thinkers for future release just a little bit ago with our friend Asher J, it's up to us. It's up to us to take individual choices to become centered in who we are and how we consume life on a daily basis, and then collectively inspire and integrate with others to do the same, to make the changes necessary to turn the clock back in such a way that it can at least sustain us going forward. And we're never going to go back. I was saying to a friend yesterday, I was like, hey, in Los Angeles, we trade May and June, famously gloomy, June gloom, May gray. We trade that part of summer for September and early October, which is our real summer. But having said that, 26, 27 years ago when I moved here, our real summer in September and October was a couple of weeks of like 80 to 85 degree temperatures Fahrenheit, not 100 to 105 degree temperatures Fahrenheit, which is what we've got now. So we've broken the climate, and ultimately it's up to us. We can just leave it go unchecked, or we can start to collectively and individually do things about it so that we can just live a life that we can continue to live on this planet. Because as Asher and I discussed today, the planet is going to exist regardless. Like the rock that we live on is going to exist. It's going to reinvent itself. It's going to repopulate itself with species and plants and all that stuff. But we, the humans, will not be able to inhabit this planet anymore because of what we, the humans, are doing to the planet. So that's on us. But that is just one little teaser of a theme that's been on my mind all week. This is a thesis of mine that I've had since the beginning of the pandemic. So me sharing this episode with you this week is basically me sharing this thesis at large. And it's that I believe we're living right now through this period I call it the Great Intermission. It's a 5-year period. We're going to look back. Historians will look back and say, a 5-year period between roughly 2020 and roughly 2025, maybe early 2026, was this 5-year window of transformation and kind of a grand pause that allowed all of us individually, collectively, systemically, nationally, internationally, cross-border, culturally, politically, entrepreneurially, economic, all the systems that we live inside of. We have an opportunity to reevaluate them, to reimagine them, and to frankly just do better at them. So we have a chance to take all of the amazing progress and prosperity and accomplishments that were created for the world between what I call the first act, or chapter 1, which was roughly the end of World War II, 1950 to 2020. We have a chance to take all of that goodness and build upon it and do it better and better for all and more accessible, make that goodness all accessible to more people. But then we also have the opportunity, obviously, to take all the things that we failed at miserably and that we are not very good at, and that we have done poorly, or that we have done great damage to ourselves, and to do those things better as well, and then do those things better at scale for everybody, more inclusively, more diversely, and more equitably. Period. End of sentence. So I believe we're in this great period. I believe my thesis is historians will look back and they will see that there will be a world from 1950 to 2020, and then there will be a world from roughly 2025, 2026 to 2075, 2080-ish. And I was not around for the first 15, 18 years of this thesis, and I won't be around for the last 20 or so, no matter how healthy I live the rest of my days, because I've probably got 30 years max, maybe 35. And so that's going to get me out on the far end of this life to, say, 2054, 2060 on the high end, right? So I'm not going to make it to the 2075, 2080 end of this range that I was talking about. But in this, I share it because it just keeps presenting itself to me. Like, this was my thesis for how to process and interact with the pandemic during the lockdowns, and then in the subsequent changes that happened in my life, in my business, as I saw changing communities and economies through the work that I did all across Latin America for a big chunk of the last decade. I saw as people's lives, individuals, friends, collaborators, mentors, clients, investors, all those, I saw people's lives literally being completely reevaluated and reassessed. I still hear that from a lot of friends and people. I still hear constantly from people in their conversations and trusted communications with me about the struggles and about the reevaluations and about the reassessments that are about just the kind of discernment that is going with like, hey, wait a minute, I think like how I want to live my life for the rest of my life is up to me and not just up to the system or life and how it's going to happen automatically, right? And that's awesome. And that tells me that there is this evaluation going on or reevaluation going on, that there is reimagining happening. You know me, I'm a pragmatic optimist, so I'm not going to say doomsday clock is ticking and the world is going to collapse if we don't use this period of 5 or 6 years to change ourselves. Because I believe what this really, like any great intermission in any play, affords the consumer of that to do is to sit back and revel in and enjoy and benefit from the memories and the experiences of Act One, but then also think creatively, speculatively, ideate towards what you think is going to happen, what you think is coming, right? And become part of the experience. And that's, I think, in a macro level, societally, in business, this is what we have available to us right now. And I think we're living through it. And I think if you're not taking advantage of it, if you're not thinking critically and openly and deeply and in complex ways about your own life and about the businesses that you're working on or working in, about your careers, about your relationships, both personally and professionally, about your investments, about your communities, about the things that you need, that our communities need, about our neighbors, whether they be unhoused neighbors, as I've talked about before, right out here out the window in my apartment, or neighbors who are peers of yours socially and societally speaking. Like, this is our opportunity to reevaluate and reassess everything that we've done. And again, that doesn't always mean destructively, like, we're going to get rid of the past and we're going to do it completely differently, which I know that kind of level of change is frightening to a lot of people. It's not to me. It's actually exhilarating to me. It's exhilarating to have conversations like I did today with Asher J. It's exhilarating for me to talk to Mickey Reynolds from here at Lawson & Co., an investor here in Los Angeles, to talk about and speculate about what we think Los Angeles could be like 10, 15 years from now. It's exciting for me to think about that change. I also live a life where I look very much at life in the macro. I look at myself as one tiny piece of an 8 billion person puzzle. And I'm very sensitive and conscious of how I pass through this puzzle affects the pieces and the players around me. And then that ripples out to the people even distances from me that I could never imagine. But not everybody thinks like that. I get that, right? And so for those of you that are scared, for those of you that are nervous, for those of you that are uncertain, and therefore you just want to kind of withdraw and just take care of your own and just take care of yourself and just worry about you and just try and get yours, I implore you, I almost kind of beg you to listen to what I'm postulating here, and realize that change can be good. It is natural. It's going to happen anyways. Evolutionary truths are just evolutionary truths. Facts are facts. You can't stop things. You can't turn the clock back. You can't go back and make things great again or whatever. You can't do that. That's just not real life or a grown-up life, as I would say, right? And so I think we're in this period. I think we will look back and there will be a window of the world where it was, say, for 120, 140 year period. And we'll look at this 2020 to 2025-ish moment, instigated, catalyzed by the onset of the pandemic, which is the first one most of us experienced, unless you're 98, 99, you were alive back in 2018 or 1918 for the prior pandemic. Like, this is a moment for us to do better. And so I encourage that. It comes up every time. This week it's been on the mind because of the conversations I've been having, because of going back and listening to prior episodes of Entrepreneurial Thinkers. For example, like the episode we recently dropped that you can find on your YouTube or you can find on Apple or Spotify podcast or wherever you listen to your podcast, with Michelle O'Grady Caballero from Team Friday, communication specialist. And Michelle basically helped us examine the idea that, like, the narratives and how we share our stories and how we sell narratives to communities, to organizations, to customers is changing dramatically right now. And you either lean into that and adapt and adjust, or we will fail, right? Or your organization will become irrelevant, right? Conversations we had with Robyn Ward on a prior episode, which you guys have probably listened to or watched. If you haven't, you should, where she goes deep into like the fundamentals of leadership and how leadership is changing and evolving rapidly right now to react to a changing set of cultural norms and expectations from younger workers, from investors, with investors, from entrepreneurs, from societies, from cultures, from communities. And her insights and her life lived experiences are incredible. We had Melanie Jones on recently on an episode that just dropping this week and next week early across all the channels. Again, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube on Mondays, and on Thursdays you can find it on the Spotify, the Apple, or the audio channels. Melanie talks to us about literally kind of how entrepreneurship and executive management is changing and how people are adapting and adjusting and creating kind of a more of a portfolio approach to their skills to build careers in ways that she, in her case, 15, 18 years ago, never would have imagined for herself. And she's become expert in the genre of chiefs of staff. And this role of the chief of staff, when properly defined and properly with proper expectations built around it, can be an incredibly useful role inside of an executive function in any organization. And so she talks to us about it and educates us on that, but it's just indicative of like a changing nature of work. Adela Jamal, on an episode that dropped here recently that I'm sure you guys have checked out already, talked to us about the literal ROI, like the proven ROI in the venture investment world now that comes from investing in diverse founders, diverse ideas, diverse populations, diverse communities. Mickey Reynolds doubles down on that and Adela's thesis in the conversation that'll come out in the coming weeks about her work at Slauson & Co. here in Los Angeles. So every conversation I'm having is rooted in kind of an acceptance from thoughtful, smart, very experienced, uniquely talented people who are embracing the fact that we are clearly in some type of a period of transition. I just happen to have named it the Great Intermission because it's catchy and I can remember it, right? And they're all kind of eager and enthusiastic about what's possible. Like, yes, there are a bunch of negative, potentially scary outcomes, but there are also an immense number, equal or more number of positive potential outcomes across every sector and society and segment of society, which is why I love doing this podcast, right? That's fundamentally what this is about. This Entrepreneurial Thinkers, my sharing here with you on Stoppage Time, all the other content that we create or engage in and will engage in through the Storytellers Company in the months and the years to come is all rooted in the idea that I fundamentally believe that all change, no matter how small or how big, starts with a conversation, whether it's a conversation over coffee, whether it's a conversation with your boss, whether it's a conversation in a conference room, whether it's a conversation on a Zoom. I think that everything starts with a conversation. And we've created a mechanism, a platform here inside of Entrepreneurial Thinkers in which I get to be you. I get to act as your proxy in having conversations with the best and brightest change agents and entrepreneurial thinkers that we have in our lifetime. And that's encouraging as hell for me, right? That's very exciting. So that being said, this is what's been on my mind all week. I'm very excited. I'm for as worried as I am about a lot of things, I am twice as much more excited about those things and many, many more. I'm pragmatically optimistic as ever. Maybe it's because I'm about to be a grandpa, and then the baby boy that my daughter is about to have then kind of extends my legacy beyond her lifespan, right? And so that's got me kind of just pragmatically optimistic instead of being fearful. And so I've got a book recommendation along these lines. I think the title fits what I'm talking about today just perfectly. It's called Reimagining Capitalism in a World on Fire. It's by Professor Rebecca Henderson from Harvard. She does a beautiful, detailed, analytical, narrative view of how we can take the best of the greatest system ever created, right? The current capitalism as a system has created more prosperity in the history of humankind than any other system ever. Having said that, it's also frayed at the edges. It's under structure has been chipped away at, and the way that it's functioning right now is not the way that it's designed to function, and it has the danger of basically unleashing its worst attributes on our societies and then causing ultimate decay or collapse. And so we don't want that. So let's do like any good entrepreneur would do, like any good investor would tell their entrepreneurs to do, which is let's reimagine, let's reevaluate, let's repurpose, let's adapt, adjust, let's do better. Let's take what we've done well and do it even better. Let's take what we've done poorly and do it better and change it, right? So that's where my mind has been. A lot of change, a lot of transition, a lot of transformation this week. But I send you all positive love, encouragement, happiness, joy for your stoppage time between the end of your Friday and the beginning of your weekend. And maybe this week I encourage you to just find a little bit more perspective and remember that you are a single puzzle piece in a puzzle of 8 billion pieces on this planet that we only have one of. And ultimately, yes, your vote does count. Yes, your choices do matter. Yes, your influence is much wider and has a much greater ripple effect on society at large than you think it does. So don't give up. Peace. We'll see you soon.